The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.
Welcome to the bonus show. There's a very Boston story about a fishing magnate who is known as the cod father. And of course, Cape Cod, the whitefish cod, is a big deal in Massachusetts. And there's this not really a fisherman. I mean, at one point he was a fisherman, really at this point a fishing a CEO of sorts, Carlos Rafael, who is from based out of New Bedford, Massachusetts, which is southwest of Boston. And he has been sentenced to nearly 4 years in prison for both tax evasion as well as sort of disregarding, ignoring, flouting fishing quotas. And this might actually impact the ability of many other fishermen to continue working, because with these fishing quotas, when you have someone with such a big enterprise so drastically overfishing, you're quite literally leaving fewer fish for endless other fishermen to catch and make a living. And Billy Joel famously has a song about fishing called the Downeaster Alexa. And it's not Cape Cod, but it's, I think, in like the Long Island Sound. It's quite an interesting song with lots of lyrical imagery. But in any case, this isn't about Billy Joel. It's about the cod father, and things not looking good for the cod father, mislabeling fish in order to make it appear as though the fish that he had was not cod and thus not subject to the quotas that are in place. And this is not really the fish fraud we talk about. Fish fraud, when we usually talk about it, is like you go to a sushi restaurant and they tell you you're getting some particular more expensive fish and it's really some not as good fish. This is a different type of fish fraud on a grand scale by the cod father.
Well, I guess there aren't plenty of fish in the sea, we could say, because there's not enough for everyone.
Yeah, very
good.
But
the codfather claims that he was protecting hundreds of jobs. I guess 40 of his workers showed up to the sentencing. And he said that it wasn't about greed. But the problem is that there are competitors who are suffering because his enterprise is taking up all the fish in the water.
Anytime you are dealing with a resource that is limited, it's zero sum to some degree, right? And like with oil, we're not there yet because we've not reached peak oil. We know conceptually there is some limit to the amount of oil that we could pull out of the ground. There aren't quotas in place with oil. We are still finding new places to dig for oil. But at a certain point, I mean, it's still in a literal sense, it's true that any gallon of oil that is drilled now will not be available at some later point for someone else. Now, with fish, where the populations have been reduced so drastically because of overfishing, and when you are dealing with quotas in addition to these limits, it's zero sum now. Any fish you catch above the quota, you are potentially taking it away from some other fishermen. So yeah, he's protecting his jobs, but it's other jobs for other fishermen that are at risk. So you got to take it seriously, right? I mean, it's serious business.
Yeah, you think of just mislabeling as maybe not that big of a deal. It is serious business, and I guess $19 million of his assets were seized, and 46 months in prison. He is a 65, I think, year old man, so that's a good amount of time.
Yeah.
Pretty unfortunate for him, I guess.
I guess so. And now, do you buy the argument that he was just doing it to protect the workers? I mean, whether it's true or not, it doesn't change the fact that you're breaking the law, right? I mean, I think that's fundamentally the issue.
Right. He might have otherwise been a terrific boss. I think that's maybe why so many of his workers are standing in solidarity with him.
I guess so, yeah.
But to say that greed had nothing to do with it is just completely ridiculous to me. But I guess it's good to see that even people in power can be subject to going to prison. I mean, we found out yesterday that Anthony Weiner was sentenced to 21 months as well.
Yeah.
You don't typically see that, both with politicians and people who have really made it in the business
and also,
side of things.
Who knew that you could get $19 million from fishing cod, right? I mean, I know that when you run major fishing operations that there is a lot of money there, but amassing $19 million in assets fishing cod was also, I guess, somewhat surprising. Although, you know, there's that Oleg Deripaska dude from Russia who's a billionaire. He's a billionaire from aluminum. Aluminum. Although maybe he had other businesses before, but he's known as an aluminum magnate.
Well, I think it's good that we're not coddling this fishing magnate.
I completely agree with you. Jeez, Pat is on fire with puns. Expect angry emails. Okay, I got my flu shot the other day, and it made my right arm very sore for a couple of days. Do you tend to get a flu shot, Pat?
I do not tend to get a flu shot.
That's fine. And well, you've avoided autism, which is a good thing.
Right. I'm not part of the anti-vaxxer community.
No.
I just don't do it.
Yeah. So it appears as though if you're happier your flu shot might be more effective. There's a new study which says older people who are in a good mood at the time that they get their flu shot seem to have a better immune response. This was a British study. It looked at 138 people. Immediate question is that a big enough sample size? It may not be. Those people were 65 to 85 years old. They got the vaccine that was offered in, I guess it starts being offered in August or September of the year. So this was August or September of 2014, and then lasted through the 2015 winter flu season, we would say. And the scientists recorded mood, stress, and negative thoughts, as well as sleep patterns, diet, and other measures of their physical and psychological health. And they assessed that the antibody response to the vaccine was better when they were less stressed and in a better mood. And they had more antibodies to the H1N1 potentially dangerous flu strain. Not hugely surprising. And I mean, there's so many studies that say that if your predisposition emotionally is better at the time of a treatment or a medical intervention, that the outcomes will be better. Different scientific approaches that seek to explain why that is, but the results are not altogether surprising.
Yeah, I mean, the unfortunate thing for many is maybe they're a little bit queasy when it comes to needles. And, you know, it's not like going to the flu shot is the thing that you want to do that day. You don't want to just show up to some clinic and get one, right?
Oh, I see what you're saying.
So you may not be in the best mood, and that could be detrimental to you.
The getting of the flu shot itself is what might be maybe predisposing people to not be in a good mood. It's such a minor thing, though.
Were you in a good mood when you got your flu shot this year?
I was fine. I'm not, it's just a tiny thin needle. It takes 2 seconds, and I've done it every year for 10 years or more. So it really doesn't bother me. Although sometimes you will get a day or two of cold-like symptoms, and my arm did really hurt for a couple days, but you know, then I'm at least more protected than someone with no flu shot at all.
Yeah, I guess it lowers your risk by about 40 to 60%, not of every type of virus, but of quite a few, including swine flu.
Yeah.
So that's pretty good, I guess. I don't get sick too often. I mean, every now and then I'll have a few days with some sort of allergies. I'll get a cold maybe once a year.
Okay.
But maybe I'm just waiting around until I get hit with something big. Maybe I'm due for something.
Yeah.
And then afterwards, from then on, I'll start taking a flu shot.
There is sort of a different baseline level of immune system response or strength that everybody has, and it's different. I know people who seem to catch colds all the time, and I don't know that it's necessarily because they're more exposed to other people that are contagious. I think there is some aspect of just like, what's your baseline level of resistance to viral infections?
Oh, it has to do with veganism, of course.
Oh, yeah,
That's it.
No doubt about it. Okay, hey, so I don't know if you remember the story, but Kim Jong-il, the former leader of North Korea, his oldest son is named Kim Jong-nam, and he was assassinated at an airport in February of 2017. And there's a very interesting article now in GQ telling the story of how it happened, involving 2 women. And the way that they did it was they were in the terminal at this airport, and I forget exactly where the airport was, although I could look it up. I have it in the article here. It was in Asia, maybe it was Thailand or
Malaysia.
And 2 women who had VX, which is considered, by the way, a weapon of mass destruction. It's a chemical weapon. They had VX on their hands, and they went up to Kim Jong-nam, and from behind him, they basically put their hands over his eyes and said, "Guess who?" He turned around and said, "Sorry, who are you?" And then they said, "Oh, sorry," sort of creating the idea that they thought they were surprising a friend of theirs, but it actually wasn't someone. "Oh, sorry, just I touched the wrong person."
Like they were being jokesters and playing peekaboo or something.
Exactly. And of course, they transmitted, 2 different women doing this, transmitted this VX into his body. Very small amounts can kill humans. And he went over to police indicating that he was feeling sick, and police started escorting him with no significant urgency over to the medical area of the airport, and his body seized up, and he did not last long and ultimately died. And there's a sort of very interesting and kind of depressing backstory about how Kim Jong-nam actually could have been the guy who took over North Korea after the passing of Kim Jong-il, rather than Kim Jong-un, who I believe is his half-brother. I think they share
different mothers.
Just Kim Jong-il as a parent. They have different mothers. And he did not seem suited, apparently, because of his personality to being the leader of North Korea.
Well, no, I think it's because he used a fake passport to try to get into Japan in order to go to Disneyland there. And everyone found out about it in the country, and it was this huge national embarrassment.
At North Korea, yeah.
Yes, in North Korea. So obviously, you're not going to be the heir to the throne in that case. And then I think Kim Jong-il had another son who would have been eligible, except for the fact that they thought he was a little too effeminate. So they went with Kim Jong-un.
Yeah, and you're not wrong. I mean, the entire Japan thing was a scandal, but I think that was part of why, like, someone who tries to do that, they would consider this is not really the guy that's best suited for it. But yeah, the effeminate guy wasn't suited, the Japan guy wasn't suited, so we ended up with Kim Jong-un. I imagine, or I wonder how different the situation would be today between Donald Trump and North Korea were Kim Jong-nam, for example, in control of that dictatorship at this time. I mean, we don't know. It's just speculation.
Yeah, it's hard to say, too, because I'm sure Kim Jong-nam was enlightened after he got out of North Korea.
Maybe so.
I mean, obviously, if you don't live in that country anymore, you're not going to feel the same way as you are brainwashed growing up there, even though he was in a position of affluency and,
privilege
for sure.
Although Kim Jong-il also studied outside of North Korea. So right. I'm sorry, Kim Jong-un. Kim Jong-un also studied outside of North Korea. So you would think that he might have been susceptible to sort of some kind of awakening. But the thing is, he has it good in North Korea. He's in charge of everything. So
right.
Even if he's awakened, he might say, hey, most people don't live the way I and my family live in North Korea. Anyway, check out the article. It's in GQ. It's very, very interesting.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.